You're listening to Life, the Universe, and Everything Else. Today on the show, we're talking about some good old-fashioned scams.
Woo. Life, the Universe, and Everything Else explores the intersection of science and society. Original music is produced by Ian James, and this episode was edited by Marissa McCool. Find her on Patreon at patreon.com/QAF.
My name is Jim Newman, and with me today I have Lauren Bailey.
Hello.
Ashlyn Noble.
Hello.
And Laura Creek-Newman.
Hi there.
Not a lot of preamble today. We're going to get straight to the point with our first scam and or scammer. Laura is going to tell us all about somebody we've never heard of. George Mickum.
Thanks. I had also not heard of George Mickum until researching this episode, but I'm glad that I've learned about him, and so I really want to share him with all of you. So George Mickum is the son of a lobbyist named Sally Painter, who became quasi-well-known when she served the Clinton administration in the 90s, and she's gone on to be CEO of various organizations, I think in Europe as well as in the US. So she definitely has lots of connections in England, and that is important to keep in mind. So she has a single son, George. Oh, also, I just need all of you to know that Sally is a certified ski instructor. All of her professional bios say that I have found. So it's very important.
This is irrelevant to anything else, but just it has to be in every bio?
Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
Because it's all about all of her work achievements and professional accomplishments. And then Sally is a certified ski instructor and has one son, George.
It's illegal not to say it.
Yeah, right?
Just a are there multiple certification boards? I feel like, I assume there's maybe just one American certification board for
it's skiing, Jem. Don't think too hard.
First of all, look straight ahead when you ski. If you look down, you're gonna fall. You're gonna have a bad time.
I don't know. I'm deep in the throes of professional self-regulation here, so I'm curious.
Yeah, it does not say, but she's American, so we're gonna go with that. So anyway,
so she couldn't ski in the Alps, I guess.
I don't know.
Or train people to.
So her son George is her favorite son, her only son, of course. He graduated from the University of Delaware, and he worked in real estate for a time. Now, he, being the privileged son of a diplomat that he is, he spent a lot of time with New York socialites, attending parties, making friends, and such. And when he did that, he's a very stylish person. And when he does that, he always had his signature accessory, which was a Birkin bag. Now, what is a Birkin bag, you might ask? I know.
I was about to ask.
I was really hopeful that at least one of you, and I was pretty sure it was going to be Jem, wouldn't know what a Birkin bag is.
It is my retirement carried on my arm.
Yes, exactly. A Birkin bag.
Okay.
You may have listened to the 99% Invisible episode on Birkin bags and why they're absurdly expensive.
No, I don't think so.
Now I want to, though.
I stopped listening to that show many, many, many years ago, before it got sold. I think the word I was thinking of was merkin.
Slightly different.
Well, I don't know. I still don't know what a Birkin is. Maybe it's a merkin for your face.
It is not. I'm going to tell you what a Birkin bag is. A Birkin bag is a designer handbag from the luxury brand Hermes. It's a large rectangular handbag with handles, no shoulder strap, just handles, and it has a signature clasp on the front. It comes in different sizes, but the standard size is one that could be best described as like mom purse sized. So like big enough to hold all the junk that somebody's children is constantly handing them. Okay? So it's not a small bag, it's a big bag. And there's a good reason that it is this size and shape is because it was originally designed as a mom purse. Mm-hmm. It was designed for the actress/singer Jane Birkin, who was a mom of 3. And so the story goes, she was on a plane one day and happened to be sitting right next to the designer of the Birkin bag. Didn't know it, but they struck up a conversation. He asked about her bag and what she didn't like about it, and she told him what she wanted in a bag, and he designed one and named it for her, and she's been using them ever since. And she used it as like a mom purse. Mm-hmm. So it started off as a functional bag.
Wow, cool, a bag.
Not just a purse, it's a Birkin bag.
I went to school with a guy named Birkin.
I don't think this is the same Birkin.
And then somewhere along the line, these things took on a life of their own. So why does it matter that George Mickum liked Birkin bags, right? Because it wasn't just her bag. Lots of people like Birkin bags. Well, Birkins are expensive, typically selling for tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Maybe I shouldn't use it.
Oh no, a Birkin bag is meant to be used and seen.
The most expensive Birkin sold to date was, I believe, $450,000, and it featured alligator skin leather, 18-karat gold hardware, and diamond-encrusted front clasp. $450,000 for a handbag.
That
Well,
is
seems worth it to me.
so many dollars.
But you can put all your kids' stuff in there.
Oh, yeah, you definitely want to just throw your kids like
Several
half-eaten
mortgages.
granola bars and applesauce packages and dirty diapers in that.
If you're making ophthalmologist money, you might as well.
God.
But not only do you have to have the money, you have to have the connections, is my understanding. Because you can't
You're
just
gonna get
buy
to this.
one. Okay.
Yes. So we know that George Mickum liked really expensive bags. And as Ashlyn was just saying, Birkins are really hard to get. So there is a whole culture around Birkin bags in that no one knows how many of any one style are in existence at any point in time. The company specifically keeps this very secret. You cannot order them online. You cannot find inventory lists of them online. You have to go to your nearest Hermès location and ask what they have. And so you might not have it in your city. You might have to go to a different city to find that one. So they have a lot of allure, and there's like I said, a whole culture around it. Like several years ago, so where I first heard about Birkin bags was from Sex and the City, because there's a whole episode about how Samantha is trying to get this Birkin bag. And anyway, so they used to have wait lists. So you would go to Hermès and you'd put your name and they'd be like, okay, you can get a bag in 5 years. And that's not even joking. That is the wait list. They're really hard to get for somewhat real, but mostly fabricated reasons. So anyway, back to George Mickum. So when attending high society events, he often claimed to have connections to both British royalty and the Birkin bag gatekeeper at Hermès, Michael Cost. So this is the person who determines who knows what bags are available, where they go, all of this kind of stuff. And so he used his mother's connections to the rich and powerful to bolster his own socialite credibility. And then once he got into these social circles, he would go and tell them, oh, I know the royals, I know this, I know Michael Cost. I can get things for you. I can do things. And so one of the things that he would do is he would offer to get his new socialite friends these Birkin bags without having to wait for them or to search for them. Because he'd say, oh yeah, I'll just go to Michael. No problem. You like this one? I'll get you one just like it. I'll get it for you.
I'm just saying, Richard never bought me a Birkin bag. Oh, this is exciting.
I guess it is.
So, of course, the bags he sold his friends were fakes.
Yeah.
Of course, right?
So the bags were named after
An actor.
Jim is computing and he's getting the hourglass flipping over and over.
I'm sorry, please continue.
Would you truly like clarification? I just want to make sure, like, if you don't, that's fine, but
No, that's fine. Sorry, Larissa.
Birkin was
just
an
cut this out.
actor, and
So
then but
Birkin
the
was an
inspiration
actor.
was the mom.
And
so
the inspiration was
Birkin.
Birkin's mom.
No,
No,
Birkin.
Birkin.
The actress is Jane Birkin.
Oh, okay. So she was an actress and a mom.
Yes, she was
Okay.
also a mom.
Okay.
And
She was
so
an actress and a
her
mom.
purse needs are what
Okay.
inspired this bag style,
Okay.
which was then
And
named
George-
after her.
Yeah, and George Mickum is not in any way connected to
He's
Any
the
of
scammer,
this.
I
any
think.
of this.
No.
He's just the scammer.
He's
Okay.
a guy saying,
I think there are too many rhyming names, and then I
Yeah.
started saying Merkin, and I just got turned around.
still no Merkins in here.
Guess how many Hermès boutiques there are in Canada?
7.
5.
That was close.
That's more than I thought,
That's more than I
honestly.
thought. I would have
Closest one
guessed
to us?
one.
Toronto. Oh, Calgary.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's definitely got to be
Calgary, and there's 2 in Vancouver, 1 in the airport, 1 in Toronto, 1 in Montreal.
Yeah, they're not going to have one in Manitoba.
No.
No.
This is-
Hard no.
This is flyover country.
Yeah.
Not quite as flyover as Saskatchewan,
I
but pretty
remember
close.
seeing the Hermes in the airport when we were in Vancouver in the fall, and I'm just like, walk on by. So as I was saying, of course, these are fake bags that George Mickum is selling. He does not know Michael Kost. He does not have connections. He does not have the money to own Birkins that are real Birkins. Now, this was only really discovered when, after selling some of these bags to his so-called friends, I have victims in my script, but I don't know that I really want to use that word. These people who bought the bags.
The opportunists.
There you go. I like that one. They went to their local Hermes to get it authenticated, just like you can do with things like Rolex. So then they if it needs wear or warranty or whatever else, you get it checked in that way. And they went there and the stores said, these bags are missing their date stamps that would allow for their tracking. That's like a serial number. These are fake bags. Yes.
Was his bag fake that he always carried?
He had several of them, so probably all of them. He did later admit to buying these fakes online and selling them to his friends. So presumably the ones that he was carrying were also fakes as well. Yeah. So to date, no charges have been laid, likely because the victims of his crimes are highly embarrassed that they are very rich, well-known people who fell for fake bags and didn't look for the marks of authenticity that they would normally look for. And so despite the fact that he charged people upwards of $20,000 for each of these fake bags, no one has pressed any charges against him yet.
Because that would prove that they couldn't get on the list.
Exactly. And that they didn't bother to check the high quality things that they think are so important. Oh, it's great. I don't know. I have zero sympathy for these people because they are shelling out people's entire salaries for a bag that they couldn't even pay close attention to.
Yeah.
So apparently he did return the money for at least one of the people. But it does not sound, I'm not convinced that he returned the money for all of the people. And we don't even know how many people there are. Everybody came forward for these stories anonymously. Nobody would put their names to anything for this. There are no names except his and his mother's involved in this. Yeah. Now, it seems that George Mickum also had a habit of doing similar types of things with jewelry. Seems like some of these similar people in these similar crowds are alleging he either stole their jewelry or sold jewelry to them at highly inflated prices, claiming that it was worth certain amounts and they paid it when it was worth significantly less.
Was he part of the bling ring?
Not that I know. It seems, as far as I can tell, this was just him using sort of, not trumped up, but inflated connections to get into these social circles and then to, I guess, try to make some money.
Get it, George.
Right?
You go.
There's also allegations that he was sort of squatting in billionaires' homes in the Hamptons and throwing lavish parties for society folks there without the owner's permission at the same time. Apparently, there were some weird arrangements kind of happening with that.
Very Anna Delvey.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that was what a lot of people would say. It's like the male version of the Anna Delvey situation. So all of this was discovered and went down in and around 2023, and there really hasn't been...
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was about February to May 2023 when most of this was coming out, and there really hasn't been any coverage of him since, and still no charges have been laid that I could find. There's not a whole lot, but... So he may have taken a bunch of people's money, he might have given it back. All I know is that he convinced a bunch of really rich people to pay for fake bags that he bought online. And I'm kind of down with that. Now, I want to add a little coda to this. So George is a fashionista. He's a very fashionable fellow. And George reported that he had his own fashion and styling consulting brand that he started when he was just 14 years old. In fact, he claimed that he started styling his mom's colleagues as well as diplomats and politicians at the age of 10. He was so good. He became a personal shopper as a preteen. The best part of all of this, his company's name was George's.
Nice.
George's George.
And that's George Mickum.
Keep running, George.
Well, he took advantage of those who deserved it.
Right. No one really got hurt with this.
Nothing of value was lost.
Right. Nothing of value was lost. It's true. I can get behind a scam like this. That
All
is
right.
all.
So when are we getting our shipment of... Oh, wait, we can't put this on the podcast.
We're not doing that anymore, Lauren.
Oh, right.
Well, thanks, Laura. It's nice to see. I don't know. Would you consider this kind of street justice?
Well, like
I'm
Fifth
not-
Avenue justice?
I'm not saying Mickum is suddenly some like Luigi Mangione figure, but I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to go with that sentence. So why don't we allow me to have trailed off and move on to Ashlyn, who will tell us all about pig butchering. So Manitoba is known as a major farming center. And in fact, we have close family members who ran a hog farm until relatively recently. Is this at all relevant, Ashlyn?
No,
Okay.
0%. But having to read the phrase pig butchering over and over again does bring some specific things to mind. Wish they had named the scam something different. So, if you've used a dating app or been a person on social media or owned a phone in the last few years,
Yup.
you've probably received some kind of message from a scammer looking to get you to trust them using whatever combination of romance, friendship, and dreams of riches that they can manipulate inside you.
Birkin bags?
We all have something. Your dreams of Birkin bags. They could absolutely manipulate that. It starts with a message. Maybe one that seems like a wrong number initially. Like, hi, long time no see, or something to that effect. You reply saying that it's a wrong number, and they strike up a conversation, and they get to know you. Wow, a new friend out of the blue. I have to say, my father seems extremely vulnerable to things like this.
I think most fathers,
Yeah.
I don't think my father is. I'd say many fathers.
other family members of yours might be.
Mm. There are also millions and millions of dating profiles out there with someone just good looking enough to make you think you have a chance, who are willing to tell you that they hate these apps and would like to take it to WhatsApp immediately so that they can start to get their nails in you outside of the realms of Tinder or Bumble or things like that. One of the hallmarks of a good performer of this scam is patience. Mm-hmm. It takes time to build up a relationship with a mark, to fatten the piglet, so to speak. These are the terms that they use. Over weeks or months, the scammers will get close to their victims, convincing them that the friendship or romance is real. They'll exchange pictures, video chats even, anything to convince them that this is a real person in a real relationship with them. If the victim suggests meeting up in person, though, there will be a convenient excuse. A business trip, a sudden death in the family, the pipes in your condo burst, and you have to stay in an Airbnb that doesn't allow guests. Like, there are 100 stories. And it doesn't matter how many times in a row this happens. It's amazing how many excuses some people will take that sound plausible. This friend of yours starts to talk about how well off they are, how they've made so much money in crypto. They show off all of their expensive stuff, all of their possessions, and they start to enthuse to their friends about the ways that they make this money, the ways that they have easily invested in. Look at this website. Often they are going to introduce them to a friend who has helped them make these good investments. This friend will be the only one in the situation who ever directly asks the victim for money. And that's really important because it is super hard for a lot of people to put the dots together between, well, but I trust this friend and this friend would never do anything to me, but they trust this person. So I'm going to trust this person. It is like a really easy way to manipulate our psyches and the way that we have come to make communities to make ourselves better. We trust the people that our people trust.
I've met enough of them. People. What a bunch of bastards.
So their friend is showing off all this wealth. Why would their friend lie to them? Why wouldn't you want to invest with the same guy? And at first, they've gotten really sophisticated. They will give you actual returns on your investments to start with. So if you invest $20, after a couple of weeks, it's doubled. It's at $40. Well, can I take that money out? Of course you can.
once it has been proven to you that this is a real thing that you can really put money into and get it back out of, it is very easy to convince a lot of folks to put in a lot of money. Right. All of their money.
Right.
Because they can double it and double it and double it again until they're a millionaire.
That's how investments always work, right?
Guaranteed returns.
100% return rate in a short period of time.
There is a specific app that was mentioned in one of the articles. I think it was called Metadata or something, like really boring like that. That is in the App Store, that is used by a whole bunch of these scammers, and they use the fact that it is in the App Store, places like the Apple App Store and whatever, to say, look, it's legit, but it is super easy to manipulate the way that people put money into accounts there in order to get it to the scammers, is the problem. But look, it's a legit app. You can buy it in the App Store, kind of thing. Very, very good piece of the puzzle, I think.
Totally, because that's one of those checks and balances. Like, well, Apple wouldn't have this thing if it was that sketch, it wouldn't be here, right?
So the victim gives more and more money. The more money you put in, the faster you can grow it. When they finally call it quits and say they want to take it out, after, of course, the initial resistance of, well, you can't take it out now, but eventually they'll say, okay, you can take it out. There's just going to be the transfer fees, the brokerage, the tariffs, some other sort of tax came up, just over and over again. Every time we need $1,000, we need 10%, we need something. And they'll continue to borrow from everybody they know because, of course, they're going to have millions soon. They can just pay it back. And they truly deeply believe this. And no matter how many people in their lives are yelling at them, this is a scam, and they're not going to give them any more money, they're like, no, my friend wouldn't lie to me. Yeah.
Extremely grim stuff.
So as soon as they cannot or will not pay more, the whole operation and their online friend or romantic partner vanishes into the night with never another word, leaving their mark deep in debt and emotionally devastated. Woo. At the same time. So in an awful twist, I did tell you this was a bummer of a story. The people who are being taken advantage of financially, obviously not having a good time.
Gonna have a bad time.
The people perpetrating this are being trafficked.
No.
So they are also being tricked. Criminal organizations trick people into thinking they're being offered legitimate work. Only these people find themselves trafficked into a compound full of people all spending their days juggling text conversations with potential marks. Just hundreds of these conversations at a time, trying to find people who they can easily take advantage of. Ew. They are slaves. They are bought and sold over different messaging apps. People who can speak English and type quickly fetch premium prices because they can be put to work very quickly in these kinds of scams. And the huge amounts of money that these scams bring in are enabling the human trafficking and slavery and vice versa. It's like a whole thing that just funds itself and keeps growing and bringing in just massive amounts of money.
There's got to be some drugs in there too, right?
Oh, probably. Who knows?
Okay.
But just the money, the financial.
Yeah, you got to have that broad portfolio.
So,
is there any way we can help these people? If you get a text, can you tell me?
So I was just going to end off with we all just have to do our part to tell everybody that we know that is maybe a little bit less tech savvy, a little bit less understanding of how many scams are out there right now. And this has been hugely on the rise since the pandemic, especially. Tell your older relatives. Don't reply to random text messages, friend requests, or people who seem friendly on the Scrabble apps. I cannot tell you how many people on this Scrabble and Words with Friends, I would say 50% of the people are not interested in playing Scrabble. They're interested in getting you to invest in crypto.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Investing in crypto is a terrible idea, whether or not you're being scammed. Anything with a huge guaranteed returns is always a lie. And these things will just keep holding true. And it is difficult to think that there are people who don't know this already, that you shouldn't send money to strangers on the internet that you haven't actually met. But they're still raking in billions with a B every year.
Yikes.
Oh, double bummer. Woo.
It is really hard when I get one of those text messages saying, "Hey Terry, is that meeting still happening?" Or, "Sue, new phone, how you doing?" Not to get angry with the person on the other end because that person is trying to scam you, but they're probably a victim as well. And so it doesn't help. I was just scrolling through my texts. Hey, Mia, how are you doing? The one that I got from an unknown number just earlier this week.
You do look like a Mia.
Thanks, Ashlyn. This is an important message to get out. And while I don't think that there's anything we can do where we are to immediately or directly help the people who are being trafficked, as Ashlyn's saying, the fewer marks there are, the less lucrative this scam will be, and the less incentive there will be to traffic people to do this.
And military widows do not want to bang you, no matter who you are. I promise you it's a scam.
What?
Every freaking like friend request on Facebook is like a dude in the military who's a widow with like a prominent picture of a dog.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the ads on Pornhub.
No.
Military widowers? Is that what you're...
Sure, yeah.
Like
I
a
don't
man?
care, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But I'm sure it goes the other way too. Of I'm a 55-year-old woman who lost my husband and just looking for companionship or whatever. It's a lie.
Yeah. In the same way, you should, when you get a message from a stranger, you should assume that person is lying to you on the internet. In the same way, you get a message from a CEO of a tech company, you should assume that person is lying to you and trying to steal your money. Okay.
I was just thinking, is there a way that we can collectively get together and redirect all of these scammers to be like, contact me at this number, and it's like somehow we get Doge escorters. Yeah. Like that would be fantastic. Just get it all funneled in there, and that would be not because it'll work, but just because it will be good.
This is a good point. You did kind of step on the segue into my segment, but it's
sorry.
fine.
That's usually Lauren's job.
So, last month, they installed some new security scanners at the Health Sciences Center, HSC, our big trauma center here in Winnipeg. I actually had missed that they'd been installed. I was aware that they were going to be installed, but I have spent my last 2 months at St. Boniface Hospital, our other big hospital, our cardiac center. So I'd missed this. But a lot of people were relieved to see these scanners appear. Because, for context, there have been, across Manitoba and throughout Canada, lots of well-publicized attacks in hospitals. Colloquially, they were referred to as code whites, is the code for a violent incident in a hospital, or security is requested at a specific area. If you ever hear that called over the intercom, your code blue is your cardiopulmonary arrest, your code red is a fire, code, yellow is a missing person?
Yes.
Code white is a violent incident. So there have been a lot of these. So there was recently somebody who brought a gun into the Children's Hospital, which is part of Health Sciences Center here. There was a security guard just last year who was stabbed by a patient. There have been a bunch of stabbings in the Maritime provinces at hospitals, heard about from friends who work there. And on just this past Christmas Eve, there was apparently an incident at the hospital in Thompson, where actually I worked a couple of years ago during my obstetrics rotation in med school, where somebody was threatening staff with a rifle and then blasted a hole in the window to the chapel. So with that context, I'll quote here from the CBC, new safety officers at Manitoba's largest hospital will be properly equipped, Health Minister says. Arbitrator gives, this is from last year. Arbitrator gives Shared Health 30 days to create a safety plan after finding, quote, unacceptable risk. Continuing the quotation, the Manitoba Nurses Union filed a grievance against Shared Health in late June of 2024 amid numerous incidents of violent crime and theft around Health Sciences Center. Again, that's Manitoba's largest hospital. The union claimed that Shared Health failed to maintain a safe workplace in violation of workplace safety regulations and their collective agreement. So, why is all this happening? Well, it's hard to know for sure. It's hard to name one specific cause or even one collection of causes. The provincial All of our provincial healthcare systems in Canada are suffering under decades of cuts, as well as an aging population and
a life-altering pandemic.
a life-altering pandemic, which has increased medical morbidity among the patient population and also put a strain on the medical system that was already suffering from these cuts. And as people live longer, they accrue more medical conditions and require more care. And then we have a system in which far too many people don't have primary care providers. Walk-in clinics are bursting at the seams, and some folks are showing up for essentially primary care at urgent care centers and emergency rooms. And consequently, most patients are waiting many hours, in some cases days, to be seen. Well, I don't pretend to have a complete explanation, let alone a solution to the safety issue that some frontline healthcare workers are facing in the ER. As we'll get to, I can tell you that these new scanners aren't it. So I'm going to quote again. Manitoba says institutional safety officers at the province's largest hospitals will have access to the right tools, including pepper gel, as the program meant to make health sciences centers safer gets set to launch years after the law establishing it came into effect. These souped-up security guards aren't the only solution. This is me editorializing again here. After all, how could human beings, with thoughts and feelings and the ability to engage in critical reasoning and allow us to interrogate their judgment, how could they be a solution when we could use technology instead? So I'll quote here from the Winnipeg Free Press. 2 different scanner systems were tested by trained staff at ER and the Crisis Response Center entrances at HSC last summer. Officials concluded that both were effective in terms of finding, quote, items of concern after reviewing data from the trial period, while feedback from staff, patients, and visitors indicated that they felt safer, Health Minister Asseguera said. The health minister said that the model that was chosen has, quote, less of a presence than the other system that was trialed. They said, quote, it's great when you can have weapons detector technology that is not very disruptive to the space and not intimidating and also very effective. So I guess in theory I would agree with Minister Asseguera if such a technology existed. Unfortunately, it doesn't. And it is heartbreakingly naive, devastatingly disappointing that anyone in any decision-making capacity could have been fooled into thinking that this system did indeed exist. So there are 2 big players right now that were trialed, not mentioned in the articles, but I'm somewhat familiar with the space, and I do know which player was selected and what the other major player is. So let's talk about them. We're talking about AI-powered weapon scanners, weapon detectors. So 2 of the biggest players in this industry are Toronto-based Extract One, formerly known as Patriot One Technologies.
Oh. Ew.
No.
And that is the winner of the bid. Those are the scanners that are installed at Health Sciences Center. I said Evolve Technologies, and that is in fact the name of the company. However, the company bills itself as Evolve Technology, singular, on their website for some reason. As we've all come to understand over the last few years, it would be silly to expect attention to detail from a tech company, let alone a tech company with a focus on AI. So Evolve Technology, this is Evolve, of course, missing its final E.
Yeah, I assumed.
OLV.
Yeah.
They state on their website that they, quote, aim to help organizations detect potential threats, mitigate risk, and enhance safety using AI-powered security solutions.
The keyword being aim.
Yeah, there's so many keywords here. They're just little words right at the beginning of all these sentences.
While Extract One states that its, quote, AI power weapon detection system.
Wait, was that all caps? It sounded like all caps.
Is, quote, transforming perimeter screening and security by replacing obsolete walk-through metal detectors.
Didn't say what it did, though.
So Extract One's scanners are the ones that were installed at Health Sciences Center, while Evolve's scanners are currently in use here in Manitoba at our big downtown entertainment center, currently called the Canada Life Center, but it'll be called something else next year and the year after, as all of these things go. So how are these scanners meant to work? Well, it's actually kind of unclear. I spent a good amount of time trying to figure it out. And aside from the fluffy AI-generated, probably, prose on their website that touts their efficiency and efficacy, neither company is actually very forthcoming with the way their scanners work. Like, what kind of scanner is this? Is not using backscatter X-rays. I don't think it's shooting any ionizing radiation. A lot of them will use camera technology. From third-party reports, the best I can tell is that both of these companies seem to be relying on magnetic moment detection with some machine learning overlays to probabilistically determine whether a particular object that has been detected by this essentially souped-up metal detector is likely to be a weapon or not. I would love to do a deeper dive on the underlying, scanner detector technology, but a lot of them are trying to be coy with what the scanner part of the scanners actually is. It seems that it is probably just a metal detector or one of those magnetometers that are used at entrances and exits of stores that are used to detect objects. In some cases, probably combined with security camera footage that will do, or potentially you can also use sonar for this, or like ultrasound to detect shapes of bulges.
That's actually kind of interesting.
However, I cannot verify that they're actually using this because they're not telling me what kind of scanners. So I just have to sort of sketch broadly what kinds of things are in the space. And then they're layering over top of this some sort of AI decision algorithm to decide whether something is likely to be a threat or not.
When do people's heads blow up?
I want to see some controlled trials where let's see what happens. Out of 100 people walking through with objects, how often does it get it right that it was a dangerous object?
I appreciate the scanners reference. I just didn't want to let that slip past.
Sorry. I didn't know it. It's fine.
So, Laura, that is a great point, and I'll come back to it. But unfortunately, it seems like a lot of the people who are making these decisions, these purchasing decisions, are not really engaging in any kind of critical thinking about the efficacy of these scanners. So you may notice that the question I asked wasn't how do these work, but how are these meant to work? And I said that very specifically, of course, because, as we are all fond of saying, it's no use trying to figure out how something works before you determine whether the thing works. And in fact, these things do not work at all. So I'm going to quote again from the Free Press. Evolve, so this is one of the other companies that was trialed, has faced claims that their scanners failed to detect weapons several times in U.S. schools. Evolve and the U.S. Federal Trade Commission recently reached a settlement after the FTC accused the Massachusetts-based company of deceptively claiming its express scanners, used in thousands of American schools, depressing, and many sports stadiums and hospitals, would detect all weapons and were more effective than traditional metal detectors. Evolve disputed the allegations and did not admit wrongdoing, a company statement said. Although, to editorialize, they did settle the case. Connor Healy, Director of Government Research with IPVM, a US-based security and surveillance research group, said hospitals and other potential clients should attempt to verify manufacturers' claims, given the allegations against Evolve, and research suggesting the technology is not as efficient as claimed. This is putting this mildly.
Not as efficient as claimed. Ooh.
Also, the whole, the consumer is really responsible for finding out if this thing works or not. Nope.
I mean, caveat emptor, I guess, but this is such basic stuff. You should never, ever trust a company that is trying to sell you something. You should assume, I feel like a crazy person. Just like I'm wild, unkempt hair and beard, rending my garments, screaming from a cliff top.
Anybody!
Why is nobody listening to this? Is so obvious.
Because we have 300 listeners per month on our podcast.
We have more than that. Not that much more.
but it's more. More is more, Lauren. Okay, like, do these...
A CEO is talking. You know how you know a CEO is lying? Their mouth is moving. If they're trying to sell you something, we know that there is no repercussion for lying. That is why anybody who has worked closely with a tech CEO will tell you they just lie all the time. Because it doesn't matter. There are no consequences, as this example shows.
Oh, I've been going through the list of potential weapons that I'm not at all convinced that these things could find. Like, I don't know, can it find sharpened pencils? Can it find, like, a mini hockey stick that the end has been broken off so it's real sharp? Like, can it find a couple of billiard balls in a sock? I don't know. I don't think so.
So one of the things that continues to disappoint me is this is in the context of healthcare, right? And in healthcare and in security, screening in general, we're very concerned with the concepts of sensitivity and specificity, okay? So sensitivity is how good is your detector at detecting something? So if you're walking through with a knife, is it going to beep or alarm 99% of the time you walk through with a knife and only miss it one time? That would be a sensitivity of 99%. Or is it going to beep 70% of the time you walk through? That is a sensitivity of 70%.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to consider specificity. So specificity is when you walk through and it beeps, how likely is it that it was, in fact, a knife and not a spatula?
Thought you were going to go spoon.
I see you've played knifey spoony before.
If
I was imagining spatula.
So that's specificity. If you walk through and 99% of the time when it beeps, the person is actually carrying a weapon, and only 1% of the time are they carrying a spoon, then you have a 99% specificity. The problem with a lot of screening, there are two, I guess, major problems when we're talking about screening, and this is screening for cancer or screening for weapons. The two problems are, when you increase sensitivity, meaning you're going to catch more of the knives and miss fewer of the knives, generally, you also will decrease specificity. This is not a universal rule, but usually that's the way these things work, because no test, no scanner is perfect. So if you've got a 70% specificity and a 70% sensitivity, which means your scanner sucks, by the way, and you want to catch more of those knives, you want to increase that sensitivity above 70% to like 80 or 90, your specificity is going to plummet because the number of true positives goes up, but the number of false positives will also go up. I could get into a lot more math, but I will spare you.
Got it.
Please.
The second problem with both screening for weapons and screening for prostate cancer or whatever is not just how good the test is, but also what your base rate is, okay? How often are people coming in with weapons? Because if you have a scanner that is let's say it's 95% sensitive and 95% specific, okay? That seems pretty good, right? It's in the 90s. That's an A+, right?
No.
And that depends on your school. Depends on the grade curve. So 95% accurate, right? Accuracy is usually a blend of sensitivity and specificity. Seems pretty good. If the rate of people carrying weapons past your scanner is like 1 in 1,000, most of your hits are going to be, well, okay, not 1 in 1,000, 1 in like 10,000, say. You rapidly get, if you have something that is rare, a rare event, whether it's a cancer, not prostate cancer is not a rare event. If you have something that's a rare event, even a very good scanner, when it gives you a positive, it is more likely to be a false positive than a true positive, just because your base rate is so low. I would love to do the math.
Please don't.
Everybody will be bored to tears. You can look this stuff up, sensitivity, specificity, and base rate, and you can see lots of examples. This is a problem, right? Because if your sensitivity is low, it's relatively useless, especially when people realize that your sensitivity is low, okay? A lot of the deterrence is people assuming that
it's really good,
your thing works.
that nothing will get through, and then that one time they walk through with the machete and it's just fine, and then they learn.
Yep, and word gets out. So if your sensitivity is low, it's worthless. But if your sensitivity is jacked all the way up and your specificity tanks, you have a major problem, because suddenly you go from everybody just walking through these scanners to it beeping for everybody and you having to get a human being involved doing a pat down or what have you. And suddenly you've lost all of your so-called efficiency. Okay.
But that's not the company's problem. That's your problem now.
Exactly.
We did our part. We scanned and we told you all the weapons that were there, and now hands up. Thank you for the money. Goodbye.
So I'll quote again from the Free Press. A Health Sciences Center nurse was questioning the efficacy of the newly installed artificial intelligence weapon detectors after she was able to walk into the hospital with several sharp weapons. The nurse decided to test the AI detectors on February 14th, that's of this year, the weekend they were installed. She made it through with a ceramic knife and a metal pocket knife, both going undetected. Extract One CEO Peter Evans said the scanners are not 100% effective. But the company works with its contractors to adjust the scanner's sensitivity accordingly.
Cool. There you go.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Between February 14th and February 24th, the scanners detected 21, quote, potentially dangerous items.
Ooh, what were they?
Pocket knives, nail files, scissors, the spokesperson said in an email. The scanner, so I'll give some background here. These scanners use AI to detect the shapes of potentially dangerous items on a person and alarm security personnel. That's weirdly phrased there. Free Press? Oh, this is one of the authors that was...
Keep it moving.
I'm not a huge fan of this. I've got personal beef with some reporters after the last year. Manitoba Nurses Union President Darlene Jackson said the scanners being unable to detect some items is concerning, considering the number of weapons confiscated by security on a day-to-day basis. Jackson has spoken with other nurses at HSC who say that a patient made it through the scanners with a pocket full of bullets.
But if they didn't have a gun, I mean, what are they? They're just going to throw them at you, I guess?
A spokesperson for Health Minister Uzoma Asaguera deferred questions about the efficacy of the scanners to Shared Health, which detailed other safety initiatives underway, including equipping security staff with weapon detection wands. I assume we're talking magic wands?
Yeah, like these aren't just those
Accio weapon!
Whoop, 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 wands.
And additional security features.
Over here.
So I will say, just today, I had lunch with my father, who has had to spend some time at HSC recently because he's had some surgery. And he told me that I think it was yesterday, he walked through these scanners at HSC and then realized he had 2 screwdrivers and a box cutter in his pocket. When he realized he'd gone through the scanners with them, he went to the security guard station next to the scanners and said, I think your scanners are broken, and showed them the very pointy Phillips screwdrivers. I don't think he brandished the box cutter. The security guard, he told me, looked at the screwdrivers, shrugged, and said, I don't know, maybe you're with maintenance.
Amazing.
So my dad is like an older white guy, not particularly threatening, and he didn't press the issue, but... It is pretty funny. And like I have walked through the Evolve scanners several times now. This is the other brand at
the Arena.
At the Arena, thank you. And I have not bothered to take my Swiss Army knife out of my pocket at any point, which I used to do back when they had metal detectors, because it's annoying to have it confiscated. And it's never been flagged for me either. all of these things are this is hardly new information. I mean, I'm going to quote from The Verge last year. When New York City installed Evolve scanners at a hospital at the Bronx in 2022, the machines frequently reported false positives, according to a public records request obtained by Hellgate. In the 7 months the Evolve scanners were active, 50,000 of the 194,000 scans resulted in a positive alarm. Okay, so that means that 25% of the people, more than 25% of the people walking through, had an alarm triggered, okay? 85% of these alarms were false positives.
Wow.
Most of the actual positives were triggered by police officers who did have weapons, but unfortunately were allowed to have those weapons. I'm editorializing it a little bit here. I'll go back to quoting. Just 295 of the 50,000 positive scans were triggered by civilians carrying weapons. These are knives, guns, or weapons categorized as other. Evolve claims its AI-equipped scanners use, quote, safe ultra-low frequency electromagnetic fields and advanced sensors to detect concealed weapons, end quote. So, again, not super specific, probably magnetic moment stuff, plus advanced sensors, which could mean any number of things. Going back to the quote here, the company's CEO has said the machines can detect any type of weapon, from guns to bombs to large tactical knives. But the 2022 pilot, as well as industry testing and more recent probes by the FTC and the SEC, as well as a class action lawsuit filed by shareholders, suggests Evolve's scanners are less effective than advertised. In a certain sense, I think that these scanners, useless as they are kind of an improvement over metal detectors. I don't know how you
I wasn't expecting that.
How you folks feel about this. Metal detectors are also dog shit. Fundamentally, I don't think either one makes us any safer. They're both a form of security theater. They're both an excuse that can be used to engage people's judgment on who they want to harass or not at the turnstile. But at least you can breathe through these a little faster. And my Swiss Army knife is no longer being taken away. Although, to be fair, at the library, I have bluffed my way through a positive metal detector several times with my Swiss Army knife in my pocket because I did not want to surrender it. And as a white guy, unfortunately, that is something that I'm able to do pretty easily. Although I will close with just me remembering one time I went to a Dashboard Confessional concert with Laura, and they tried to take my pocket watch away because it had a chain on it.
I forgot about that.
So, these scanners are total nonsense. An embarrassment to anyone who has any interest in technology, or any interest in security. Luckily, I have no interest in either.
Oh.
Lauren, why don't you bring us home by telling us all about Lamar Keene?
Yeah, don't worry. This one's dead. He can't hurt you anymore.
Yay!
Do you all remember having to present book reports specifically in grade school?
Yep.
Okay. You actually had to present them and just hand them in?
I participate in medical journal clubs, which is basically like a...
No, I'm talking literally like you're grade 8.
Yeah, like
that's
school.
I remember book club.
There.
Yeah, that's the level we're getting.
Okay.
Here. The whole time I was researching and writing this segment, I did feel, like I said, that I was writing a book report. Because I'm going to give you, because we only have a little bit of time, I'm going to give you the barest skeleton of a biography of Lamar Keene, who I first learned about in a 6-part deep dive podcast called Fake Psychic by Vicky Baker, who had previously broke the podcast Fake Heiress about Anna Delvey.
Ah, nice.
Cool. So this was her follow-up. I finished listening to the show a couple of years ago, and I kept it in my carefully curated podcast library. I get rid of everything once it's done. Specifically, I kept it for the next time we did this kind of episode. I don't think my segment can live up to that build-up, but here we go. Morris Lamar Keene was a well-known spirit medium in the 1960s. He got a start in Tampa, Florida, and then he worked at Camp Chesterfield in Indiana. And then he got out of the medium game pretty spectacularly. I'm going to show the other hosts a picture of Lamar.
Oh!
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, I'll do my best to describe this to our audience.
It's like looking in a mirror, a very sexy mirror.
Yeah. So this was at the height of his medium career. And I'm sure we can all agree that this was a look. L-E-W-K. It was a look. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a bright white suit, shiny dark hair, well-groomed goatee, mustache, Crowley combination.
Maybe a Van Dyke a little bit.
Van Dyke doesn't have the mustache attached, I thought.
So it's the mustache and the beard, but yeah, they are separated.
Yeah,
typically.
this one's...
Oh, is that attached?
That was attached.
Excuse me.
Yeah. And he's got that penetrating stare that goes into the distance, and it's meant to show you that he can see.
Mm-hmm.
When you Google this guy's name, these are the pictures that come up. There's one basic one. You'll see what it is. Lamar was born in August of 1936, and he was a normal child without any noted psychic powers. His mother died when he was 13, and there were no reported incidents of Lamar speaking to her spirit. After he graduated from high school, which was apparently rare enough to be mentioned, Lamar convinced his father to let him go to business college. And he settled down to the average life in Tampa, Florida in the 1940s and early 50s. However, when he was 19, so a couple years later, he ran into a friend from high school, who he calls Raoul in his book.
Okay.
Raoul was very spiritual and had just returned from Bible college and was working at a spiritualist church. Between the two of them, Lamar and Raoul learned how to do some of the spirit mediumship and start hosting seances and other church activities. We've talked about it before, but as a refresher, spirit mediumship is the practice of appearing to talk to the ghosts or spirits or crossed over entities or energies of the dead. Some claim to speak to spirit guides, some go into a trance, some just get voices from the beyond. In the 1950s and 60s, ectoplasm was part of the rage as well. In reality, spirit mediums are using hot or cold reading techniques to make people think that they were speaking to their dead relatives. Think Teresa Caputo, John Edwards. We've done segments on them so much in the past.
We did one on Sylvia Brown after she finally bit the dust.
Went to the beyond. So within a couple of years, Lamar and Raoul, who were also a romantic couple, representation, they had made enough money to start their own spiritualist church. They rented space, and eventually they were able to build their own church on donated land outside of Tampa, and they settled in to continue making a lot of money pretending to talk to dead relatives of the clients. They were both extremely good showmen, and eventually Lamar ordained himself, just as Raoul had done earlier. He had gone to Bible college, but then he ordained himself.
Oh,
That's
nice.
all you need. That's all you need.
You feel it's
like Napoleon move.
Yeah. If you believe it hard enough, then it's just true.
So
I believe that I am the anointed one. Therefore, it is true.
And then they were both performing the duties of spiritualist reverends, including like marrying people and the seances.
Okay.
Yeah, burying people. Yeah, everything.
One-stop shop. Cool.
Enter Mabel Riffle. Mabel was a leading member of the Indiana Association of Spiritualists, and she ran the psychic summer camp called Camp Chesterfield. Anybody heard of it?
No.
Not just because it's a couch. Camp Chesterfield in Indiana has been the hotspot for mediums since 1891. Despite many undercover and overt debunkings going back to at least 1925, it's still operating. It's on the list of historic places.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. Just before Lamar and Raoul came on board, the camp had been rocked by a scandal that was published in the pages of the Psychic Observer itself. So the editor had assumed that using what was brand new technology then, infrared cameras, he could finally photograph during the dark seances, and he could have actual photographic evidence of ghosts. So he came to this Mabel Riffle and said, if we do this, we use this technology, and we'll have pictures of ghosts, and we'll publish it. It'll be great. It'll be an expose. This did not go to plan. And the editor, Tom O'Neill, and the psychic researcher he was working with, Dr. Andrea Pukarik, they eventually published what they had found, that the ghosts were people coming in and out of hidden doors, the ectoplasm was gossamer fabric, and the whole thing was a fraud. This revelation, though it ruined Tom O'Neill's career at the Psychic Observer, hard to walk that one back, did not slow the flow of believers who flocked to Camp Chesterfield each summer to speak to their departed loved ones and spend time hobnobbing with their favorite resident mediums. I always want to say media. We don't use that Latin pearls when we're talking about people.
Yeah.
I typed it so many times.
Psychic media.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the I'm just gonna go. I was just like my brain was spinning in tautological territory. So.
Yeah, mine did too. So that little scandal was the atmosphere when Lamar and Raoul set up shop at Camp Chesterfield. So the mediums would sign on for the summer, and that they would have their own little cabin, and you'd have your room in the front where you did your seances, and people would come see you. You'd have your appointments. There was also cabins for the guests. Think like Mrs. Maisel's summer camp or Dirty Dancing, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Just with psychics. We've got the atmosphere there. There's a little bit of scandal. And then Lamar also alleges that Mabel took him to the basement of the church and showed him their prized possession. This is as she's trying to get him on board. It was a set of small boxes that contained index cards on each of the camp's guests. Details like the names of dead relatives, how these people could best be fooled, everything they were thinking about.
All the bits that are going to help you put together a good show.
Yeah. According to Mabel, when mediums met with guests outside of the camp, they then brought that information to store in the vault for sharing among other mediums on the site and beyond. So this was like a big cabal of these mediums working together. But also, in the industry, it was sort of every person for themselves. So you don't share information, but here, this group was sharing information.
Right. Okay.
Camp Chesterfield's people have said that this is a lie. This never existed. There's no basement to the church, which was giving me very Pizzagate. But thousands of index cards can fit in a very small box.
Yeah. Like so, you don't need a room full of boxes.
No, it's not a vault. It's an alcove off the bottom of the church. Yeah.
Or like a shoe cubby. Like, it doesn't even need to be a something that a whole human could fit in to fit that many index cards.
We were talking about psychics didn't really work together. That's sort of how Lamar had built his career, and that's how he knew his industry to work. And seeing this kind of cooperation between the performers led him to believe that there was some sort of worldwide cabal, a psychic mafia, if you will, of mediums in the United States, at least.
Okay.
Lamar and Raoul continued making money at Camp Chesterfield, so this wasn't enough to put them off in the summer seasons. And then they went back to their own spiritualist church in Tampa in the other seasons, when they weren't summering in Indiana. One of his persistence clients was a rich woman with an oil futures named Florence Hutchinson. She spoke to her dead son, Charles, through Lamar's mediumship.
Okay.
Lamar immediately sort of glommed onto Florence, so they were very drawn to each other. And Florence went back with Lamar to Florida and became a huge donor to his spiritualist church. Eventually, Florence adopted Lamar, maybe, when he was 30. And so there's no records of that. And he changed his name from Morris Lamar Keene to Charles Lamar Hutchinson.
Oh, no. Oh.
Which was, her dead son was named Charles Hutchinson.
Oh.
Icky.
That is very special.
Yeah.
Oh.
When I do these segments, I put together an outline. Like I just write the main topics, and I sent Ashlyn just a screenshot of my outline. It says, takes over, life of rich widow's dead son, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So after a few years, when they were in their early 30s, so this all happened in their 20s. Like they're very precocious little
very
mediums.
adventurous, Yeah.
So they were in their early 30s. Raoul had had enough of the creepy mommy thing, and they had had a terrible fight. Raoul kept the church, and he kept his spirit mediumship going as well. So he had his congregation in Tampa. And Lamar struck out on his own with Florence. Don't forget Florence. But he was beginning, in his words, to feel bad about conning people out of their money.
But not Florence.
Lamar confessed to Florence.
Oh,
and
twist.
Also, yeah. And she forgave him. She said something like, the Bible tells us to forgive 1,000 times 1,000, so I can forgive you once, that kind of thing. Okay. There's a whole quote to it, and I didn't write it down. He also confessed to skeptic researchers like Bill Rauscher and Alan Spraggett. And he confessed that he was a fraud and how he did all of his tricks. Florence stuck by him, and Spraggett insisted that Lamar write a book, and so he did. It's called Psychic Mafia by Lamar Keene, as told to Alan Spraggett.
That book. I never read it.
No, I have a copy. In 1976, Keene released the book Psychic Mafia, and he blew up the whole game. Every trick for reading, every taffeta-covered assistant dancing through a dark room as a ghost, Every cardboard spirit guide poking out from behind a curtain. He talked about them all. Cold reading, detailed hot reading, cold reading, exposed trumpet mediums. I'm not even going to get into that, but that is fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah. He did a popular lecture circuit and showed how he did all of his tricks. There are videos on YouTube of him saying, okay, and this is how we do this.
Okay.
It's 1970s newsreel footage. So it's like janky video, but it's there.
Right.
Within his book, Psychic Mafia, Lamar Keene used the term true believer syndrome. Has anybody heard that? To describe people who continue to believe in paranormal phenomena after it has been proven to be false right in front of them. So the people who saw these pictures taken with this infrared camera and are still signed up for next summer. I think we're pretty much familiar with these kind of people in the last decade.
Yeah.
Keene was not the first person to use the phrase of true believer syndrome. Eric Hoffer used it in 1951. It was the title of his book to describe the psychology of fanatics. But Keene thought that it was actually a cognitive disorder that affected a certain part of the population. It has not currently been adopted into the DSM, but it's as good a phrase as any to describe what's going on here. So as this is going on, he's got his book out, and he's talking about the psychic mafia, all these people who are trying to keep the secrets and everything, and he gets very paranoid. So he and Florence move out of her mansion and into a condo. He worked in antiques and a bunch of other side jobs that weren't completely legal because he was a really good showman and he didn't really want to do things the legal way. And they really didn't need to he didn't need to work. Like Florence had a lot of money from oil, and he probably still had a pretty good nest egg from his psychic days, even though he said he was broke. So a few years after his book comes out, Lamar is still paranoid, and apparently for good reason. He was coming out of his local grocery store one day, and he was shot by from a passing car. And the bullet hit his femoral artery.
Oh, jeez.
Well, we know he was
Were they
shot.
aiming at him specifically?
Yeah. Well, that's pretty sure.
Okay.
Psychic Mafia.
We know he was shot. We don't know if it was the Psychic Mafia, though.
I do, but that's because I'm psychic.
Well, I mean, he's got his other shady businesses. He's got like his fingers in a bunch of different things. Could have been anybody.
I'm going to imagine that Uri Geller used his spoon bending powers.
He debunks Uri Geller.
Well, I mean,
Well, then it was definitely Uri Geller.
What was that movie that had the you could bend the bullet trajectory?
The Matrix?
No, it was some was it Angelina Jolie in it or something?
That sounds so familiar.
I don't remember.
And
Anyway.
stupid.
So Lamar survived. He does not. Yeah, he does not die.
Femoral artery. Huh? Good.
And he was still convinced that the Psychic Mafia was after him. In 1978, Florence had died, and Lamar was on his own. In the late 70s, Lamar did interviews with James Randi, and that became part of the 1980 book Flim Flam. So that's where he, talking about Uri Geller. So this is where most biographies of Charles Lamar Hutchinson, nee Lamar Keene, end, if they even get this far. Some of them will end with the publishing of Psychic Mafia.
Okay.
Lamar, or Chuck Hutchinson, as he preferred to be called, seemed to fade out of existence. However, this Vicky Baker, who was the host and head researcher for this fake psychic podcast that I'm doing this book report on, did some more digging. Lamar had met a new partner named Jean Suarez. And side note, before we get too far away, we're almost at the end, Raoul, whose real name was Ramon, went on to have an amazing life as one of the leading breeders of rare parrots and tortoises in the world.
And he lived happily ever
where it
after.
comes from.
He lived until 93, I think.
Okay.
And then he had this big write-up about how he saved this parrot species and everything.
Oh,
Wow.
Cool.
He's got pictures of him riding his tortoise. But that's another story.
Sounds like a fun story.
Where Lamar and Jean go next, does anybody want to guess? Ashlyn, you don't get to because I mentioned it to you before.
Sedona.
No, they stay in Florida.
Oh, okay.
Where do they go with how they spend their lives?
This is the 80s now, right?
This is say 1987, two gay men living in Florida.
They're conducting some sort of tour, right?
No.
What are they doing?
Hoteliers?
They were both diagnosed HIV positive in 1987. They founded PWAC.
What's PWAC?
People Living with AIDS Foundation.
Okay.
That ding came PWAC was responsible for things like getting the first HIV-friendly apartment block in Florida and a whole bunch of Florida mutual aid for HIV and AIDS patients and trying to get government recognition of people living with AIDS. They ran an antique store to raise funds and were the center of AIDS activism in coastal Florida. So the antique store, the idea was rich white gay men like to redo their houses. They would donate the stuff that they were tired of to this place. Other rich white gay men would buy it, and the proceeds would go to AIDS research. So Chuck, as Lamar preferred to be known, was larger than life, and he used considerable showmanship to raise money and lobby the government.
That is the best use of showmanship.
And Charles Lamar Hutchinson, he died in 1996, a month before the AZT combo cocktail was released to the public. And no one in his life at the time, his partner or any of his friends, anybody in his contacts, knew anything about the psychic mafia past.
Wow.
Thus ends my book report on Fake Mafia, the excellent podcast by Vicky Baker for BBC4. I've condensed a lot, and I totally recommend that you give it a listen. I also recommend reading Lamar's book, Psychic Mafia, which is out of print, but it can be found quite easily in PDF format on the internet.
That's quite the turnaround and redemption story. Like, he just decided to be a better person.
So rare.
I think he really had he got shot in the femoral artery. That'll do some, you gotta do some soul searching.
But he was already a better person before that. He was already like, oh, this stuff is all real bunk, and I'm gonna tell you, like, don't spend your money on all this psychic stuff.
Don't give him the halo yet. He did do some grifty things after that too.
Well, I mean, who didn't?
Once a charlatan, always a charlatan. But
let he who is without scam cast the first stone.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, but how who got hurt? Like, was it selling rich people Birkin bags that are fakes? I mean,
60s equivalent.
We decided that was a victimless crime, right? So.
Yeah, and apparently he did a lot for people living with AIDS in Florida. So.
And no scamming them, right? As far as we know?
As far as we know.
Okay.
And eventually after he died, PWAC tried to continue the antique store, but eventually they couldn't anymore, and it's sort of it has amalgamated into other AIDS activism and research, especially after 96 when we started having a little bit of hope. So that's why I saved that podcast for 2 bloody years after I finished listening to it, because I wanted to
one day.
Yeah, I'm like, we said, let's do scam artists. Oh, yes.
That's awesome.
That's great. That's a heartwarming story to end our episode with. Speaking of heartwarming, who wants to talk about something nice?
None of us.
I wasn't doing it on purpose. I just yawned. I could go.
Sure.
We have ordered our seeds for the year, and a little paper bag full of next year's food has arrived. I know I talk about my garden on Something Nice a lot, but we're already getting ready to start seeds.
That is so exciting.
And honestly, that's what we did as our Valentine's activity. We did it a couple days later, but the 3 of us sat down and I put my computer up on the big screen and we went through the TNT Seeds catalog together and picked seeds as our together thing for February.
That's so wholesome.
We're like gross. It's like, yeah.
Aw, I love that.
I'm excited to plant.
I can go next. So, real simple for me. As of this recording, as far as I'm aware, I currently have no complaints pending before the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Manitoba. There's no regulatory complaints against my license. They have all been dismissed or informally resolved with no finding of wrongdoing on my part. For listeners who have not been following along, after giving the valedictory address at my medical school graduation, many people took issue with the fact that, I said maybe bombing hospitals and shooting healthcare workers and killing journalists and kids was bad and things that shouldn't be happening. And then maybe we should collectively say that's bad. So that is a load off my mind.
Definitely.
I am going to continue, and I would have regardless, as exhausting as it can be, advocating for people who need advocacy. I'm going to continue speaking out for what is right, and it is nice to not currently be subject to complaints for that. But I'm sure, as somebody with strong moral convictions and a
podcast with dozens of listeners,
Dozens!
that it won't be the last time I face complaints, but it's nice to be free for the moment.
Yay.
I hear you.
no kidding.
We're going to keep being loudmouths, and we're going to keep being right about most stuff, probably, and apologizing when we're actually wrong.
Absolutely.
My something nice is it's warming up.
Mm-hmm.
That is nice.
Yeah. That's it.
Makes my bike rides to work not quite so cold.
Positive temperatures are a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is nice, and it feels like the right time of year to do it now, too. It's not one of those, like, unseasonal thaws, or it's going to freeze back up and go minus 25 again.
I did that last week.
It didn't go down to minus 25, though. It wasn't that bad, but that is definitely a nice something nice.
Yep.
Let's see, my something nice is I didn't have to go on strike.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, I was technically on strike for 3 hours in the middle of the night, which I slept through because I don't work nights. But then I did not have to go on strike. And that was just really nice because it's really hard rearranging sick families' appointments last minute when you're just not going to be there and stuff like that.
I hope they have come to an equitable settlement for you.
We will find out.
Mm-hmm.
This remains to be seen, so I might have to go on strike again later, but I did not have to this week, so that's something.
The fact that we have the ability to.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
important. And shared health could avoid these situations very easily by negotiating in good faith, which they tend not to do.
Jem, remember the not having complaints against you for...
I was just saying, like, you've racked up a whole new set through this episode. You've name dropped so many times, hon. I mean, technically you don't work for them, so I'm not going to comment on things because I do work for them.
I made sure my guy was dead.
I think technically I am a shared health employee.
Well, in any case.
Thanks for joining me tonight, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Show notes and references for all of our episodes are available at lueepodcast.com, where you can also find links to donate or get in touch. If you'd like to support the show, the best way to do that is with a review on Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you found us, or by sharing this episode with a friend.